Design Time, episode 95. One day. Good morning. I have a bunch of things that we've been working on, but I'm just going to cover the highlights of these things. In front of me, I have 3D printed the generatively designed in front of handle master handbrake. Printers are not big enough, so we have created connectors and bonded these two. Actually pretty strong. I bet that this would break below or above if I really reefed on it. As you can see, the layers are all this way, just for ease of printing. This is not going to be used like this. We are actually going to be getting this 3D metal printed by a company that we have been following on Instagram for a while. I've been messaging them since 2022, and they've offered to print several of these components that I've designed, including the clutch pedal. We also have a behind the handle master, so this would mount in to your car on the center console, and the master would be close to you, and this one, the master would be away from you. So some people just think this looks like it's like a pusher or something, like you would push on it. No, you would not push on this, although you could.
Has that been done?
You know, they have two-way masters and they have dual masters where it's actually a push-pull. So you could left foot brake by pushing, or you could e-brake by pulling. And some people have found a reason for that. That would be something interesting to look up for yourself. A push-pull handbrake, I think rally. I'm gonna go over a bit of the design work. I'm also gonna show you a GR Corolla angle kit that we've been building for Steve Baggsy, who's over in the UK. He competes in Drift Masters, sponsored by Monster. A lot of people know him over there. A lot of people know him over here. So I'll show you that on the computer. We also have the prototype of this. I did show you guys this. So this is a Camber lockout kit, but still maintaining adjustments. So you can see this is threaded here. And you insert this here with a set screw. When you put the set screw in, you can adjust it through this hole, and it is still adjustable and still locks it out. You can also flip this and put it in like that. One use case for this, I thought about making this out of stainless material, and that likely would have been better control because I wouldn't have needed to plate it or anything. But this being chromoly, you could weld this to any subframe or anything that's steel. And I think there may be a use case for this. If you're building something custom, or if you're trying to lock out your own car, whatever it might be. I know, like, for example, the Cadillac CTS V1, it has a steel subframe with giant slots, and Cadillac GM, for some reason, made the adjustment for your camber to just be really tight on the bolt, and it lives in a slot, and there's no cam or lockout on it. So really common for those cars to lose their alignment, including the CTS V2. We've made a kit for that car for 4 or 5 years now, basically locking out the slot because they want you to tighten the bolt with like 160 foot-pounds in order to keep it from slipping. As you can see, with it loose, it has a lot of movement. Obviously when it's tight, it's not this bad, but under hard driving, this has nothing preventing it from sliding other than the friction from the torque on the bolt. And you have officially locked out the horrendous slots that constantly lose your alignment on your CTS-V. Maybe there's a case for something like this there, but for now, this is a bolt-in for the Corvette. So we're going to install this, see how it works on our road race Corvette, continue testing from there, and see where we end up with this. Let's go over to the computer where I'll showcase how this whole thing works. I can say that there's been a lot of versions, but we haven't even made one yet, so this is just the process. Like, if you look at my alignment tools that I make, you know, some of them are version 40 before we actually like release it. So I've made, I don't know, 10 different handles now. This one may be the final one, only because metal 3D printing has its limitations, just like regular 3D printing, height, width, length. So the handle was essentially too long. I made it so that I had this dual threaded boss on the top. So now this is the handle that would be printed. So this fits, and the handle that goes on top is basically a 3D scanned piece of Play-Doh. And I'm actually gonna do a start to finish tutorial on how to go scan to CAD with something that's complex like this, where there is no XYZ origin that would make any sense. This is like a very organic 3D part. So I'll showcase that and basically how you would get a model. I know that a lot of people are wondering this. So this is this model from a scan. And you can see I have the socket head captured, holes there. So we're gonna 3D print this handle as well out of aluminum, and it will fasten to the top of the handle. This handle looks a little bit thicker and more robust than this one. That's because I added in some extra fatigue factors, cycle tests, deformation analysis, and then I also added some twisting moments where I put a moment of force twisting this, because I noticed that I have push, I have pull, I have left, I have right forces on this, but this would not handle any kind of twist very well, even if it was aluminum. When I added that moment to it, you can see the structure really started to beefen up through the middle, which makes sense because we have to think of this as, usually we're making a billet block aluminum handle. That's what most of them are. So to be 3D printed, it's going to need to be similar for sure to those. So this is the optimized shape. The basket probably took the longest with how many avoidance regions and stuff there are. I'll open that for you to show you the process. The basket looks like this when you're done designing it. And all of the red are obstacle geometry. And you need all of this obstacle geometry to represent a bolt, fastener, the path of an object, clearance for tools like a wrench or something, all kinds of different things you need to basically create and then label as obstacle geometry. And when we hide that, we're left with the green, which is preserved geometry. This is basically what we need at a minimum to use this component, to use this product. So I need the mounting flange, I need the flange for the master, and I need the two circles that capture the hardware and the bearing and all of that stuff. So when you do that, I'll go to my explore function and you can see the options based off of my objectives. This is kind of what we get. So if I show you the process of this, you can see how the computer's algorithm starts functioning. So here we can see that, you know, it's a lot of material, it's quite heavy, and the minimum safety factor I wanted was just 1 in this case. Usually I want to be around 2, but I overloaded my original analysis. So typically, depending on what you're using, you would specify your load case, and then depending on what that product's being used for, you need to determine what the safety factor is. For example, any overhead lifting in an industrial environment must be 5 times safety factor. I believe that's the minimum. I could be wrong. So like a strap, for example, that you use with a forklift or whatever, it'll say 2,000 pounds, but that has a safety factor of usually 5. So it says 2,000, likely it could hold 10,000. So just an example of different applications. Overhead lifting, it might be 10 times actually, I'm not 100% sure. You can see the iterations. It slowly is peeling away material. Over here we have our mass now reduced to 8.5, safety factor of 3.8. And this is the algorithm constantly testing using finite element analysis algorithms to really get down to where it needs to be. And we end up with a part that weighs 0.7 pounds and it has a safety factor of 3.3. So some of the forces that I was applying on this, like the flange for example, 400 pounds I was applying on this flange, and with a safety factor of 3.3, that means we're getting a part that can handle more than 1,300 pounds of force on this flange with an applied force here going through there and then being applied there. So you can use different types of loads as well and constraints like pivots and bearings and et cetera, et cetera. You could spend hours teaching this stuff, but we can't spend hours on this. So the next thing on the list is the Corolla kit that I mentioned. This one was really interesting because we had a bit of a time constraint. The customer's obviously overseas, so we don't want to be shipping a ton of stuff all for testing, and I had to get several 3D scans from them, then load in those scans, origin them, get them all sorted and working for Fusion. And this is essentially the result of this kit. So we have the Corolla OEM knuckle here, and I have the OEM scan. So this is the OEM Corolla suspension. And you can see this knuckle, the tie rod is at the back, but on this one, the tie rod's at the front. So I actually decided to take the right knuckle, put it on the left, and vice versa. I then told them, figure out where a BMW steering rack fits, an E80, E90 steering rack. Weld mounts to your subframe where that rack fits. Scan that, send that to me. They did just that. They welded in these plates here. This holds an E90 rack, so if I get rid of this, we should be able to see that. So there's the rack. So I basically took that, ran with it. The subframe is steel, fortunately, and started working my magic on the bump steer, on the Ackerman, on how much camber, what size wheels they're running, what are their over fenders, all these things times infinity of things to consider. And I ended up creating a control arm that uses the OEM ball joint, which is conveniently just a nice 3-bolt design. This adapter gets sandwiched between the bearing, picks up on the tie rod. This plate gets welded in. This tube is actually inserted and welded in. And this heim joint is actually backwards, but that's okay. So that's essentially an adapter. And then this side is like a bump stop bracket. So it bolts to the brake caliper ears, has shims. If we go to full lock, it will contact the arm in a designed spot right there. And this kit is going to get us around 62 degrees of angle, and we're sending this out to get tested. Now, the control arm, very simple in this moment because I don't know what the sway bar setup's gonna be. I didn't end up getting a scan of their calipers that they're using. There's a couple unknowns. If I added cutouts and optimized the control arm, it would be really bad if they needed to add a sway bar right where I had a hole, or if the wheel was gonna hit the arm and they needed to grind something, or if the caliper was gonna hit the arm. I don't think the wheel will. I did check that. If we look here, this is a fairly large wheel. I don't think they're running one this big, and the wheel's got tons of clearance, so that's not gonna be an issue. But the caliper, I didn't know. So they could grind it out, no problem, and clear the caliper, and then post the prototype, we can optimize the design, get them a spare that's official, so on and so forth. So we're sending this out. I'm gonna build this. I actually 3D printed the bottom half of this knuckle to act as my jig. So I'm actually gonna be bolting all the parts to this and then tacking it all together, fixturing it, then welding it. This is something that's really cool, that you can take a 3D scan from somebody in the UK and I can seal the mesh file and print this, and it looks identical. The printers are doing such a good job now at getting all of these details. This is like casting seam line. Every little bump that was on the casting is visible. It's just super impressive to be able to do stuff like this. So I'm gonna build this. He's getting it raw. We don't need to powder coat it. So everything is pretty simple. And we're gonna see on his videos how that goes. Hopefully the simulation showcases exactly how everything's gonna go in real life over there. I'm excited to see it. He's gonna have it on, he says, immediately. So within like a week from today, he's probably gonna have this kit on the car, which is really cool. So that's really it for the computer sitting stuff. We're gonna finish off this video out there. Okay, we're gonna be welding up. Okay, we're gonna be welding up Baggsy's Corolla angle kit. I have 3D printed both halves. The 3D scan that Sam sent over to me, SB Motorsport, he 3D scanned the OEM knuckles over there. This just got off the printer. All I need is a flap face here, so let's peel off some of the supports. The angle kit in pieces looks like this, paired with a lower. Welded those up already. So to put this side of it together, we're gonna actually use the bearing itself as the mount. And I'm gonna take the bearing bolts that it came with, fire them on. Obviously, you can't go too tight. It is just PLA. The next thing is mount up the adapter. So I have these alignment tabs. Sometimes you need to cut the corners with a cutoff wheel like this so you can make sure it sits flat. Normally that's programmed into the laser, but sometimes just with the heat on this thicker stuff, it still wicks into not being square. So once you have that done, you can see how this attachment works. So I'm gonna take a bolt, fire it through, and this is really how you would actually be putting it on. So we're gaining a bunch of strength through the OEM tie rod pickup from the bearing face, and then we're supporting it with these welded bungs. These actually insert into the plate as you saw on the computer. And then the next step is put the double shear plate on. I machined this spacer to be slightly oversized. This is what's going to be actually on the car. We're going to put this through like this, and this is our one-time use. So really, if I go ahead and weld this as is without melting this, that's going to be the adapter that bolts onto the factory knuckle, which looks like this. I have one here. Funny note, he scanned a GR Corolla. I have a non-GR Corolla. There are differences, so I can't actually use this for mounting that, because the only difference is the height of the tie rod pickup point. A little bit of an annoying thing, but I did overlay the scans and see that difference there. So everything else is the exact same except for the tie rod pickup, which is like the only thing I'm using. Maybe checking fitment for the brake caliper bump stop plate. This is basically useless, but I only found that out after the fact. So the next thing I'm going to do is plug weld the face, then weld this bottom part, AWD. Next thing, I'm going to flip this bolt around so I have a little more clearance. That's it. So I'll then grind the face flat, confirm the spacing fits nice with just a hair of clearance. Good to go. You can see how these sleeves actually register within the plate. Keeps this nice and square so you can clamp it, keeps it perfectly centered. And this is the full kit with the lower control arms. That's basically it. We aren't powder coating this. We're actually sending it to them. We aren't powder coating this, we're sending it to them raw. And that's basically it for this design time. The next thing that we're doing in this area is jig tables at each station. And we're gonna be making a duplicated 3-station welding area with all of the essentials at each booth. Because I've been working back here for the last couple of days and realized we have upgraded all of our departments with CNC machines, optimization processes, but not this one. This one needs the most attention, and you guys saw we have all the new powder coating stuff. Right now the bottleneck is definitely welding. We're gonna keep you guys updated on how we optimize this area as well.